the first pick in the NFL draft.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag podcast with another draft special. Myself, Andrew and Adam are back again covering some of the prospects coming up in this year's draft, and we're calling it the FTAG stamp of approval because we are going to put our stamp of approval on some of those later round guys that we think are going to hit in the NFL. Adam, it's less than a week away now. Surely you're getting excited.
It is. It's this coming Thursday. So exciting times. We are nearly there. It feels like it's been a bit of a drag the last few weeks. I suppose there's not been much news come out, has there? Really, it's been pretty quiet. So it feels like it's been a bit of a slow couple of weeks, but we're nearly there. So happy days.
Yeah, I'm about ready for it now. It's been too long. I've been covering it and covering these players since the college season finished, so it does feel like forever. So I am quite excited to see where they all land and where their homes are. And I don't know about you, but when you watch as much college and you evaluate these players so much, I get interested in the later round guys, and I get interested in where they go and see where they have a chance as well. Is it the same for you? I think most people are just like first round, second round, I'm done watching it.
Yeah, I think it is now. I think it probably wasn't before, but like you say, we obviously going through a lot more guys now, looking at a lot more tape than what we ever did before. And I think doing this show kind of makes you feel like that you do want to get more involved with some of the later round guys. A lot of the guys that we're talking about today, that they're kind of, I suppose they're sort of like I'd say probably round 3 onwards. Might be a couple of round 2 ones in there, but predominantly round 3 onwards. And I think there's like it goes to show, especially this year, I think there's a lot of talent in this year's draft that maybe we haven't seen so much in other years. I think that's the other reason maybe this year we're kind of a bit more interested, because it has been sort of like there is that much more depth compared to what there has been in previous years. So.
Yeah, really looking forward. So let's kick it off. I think we're both starting off with a similar position, and that's at running back. I believe you've got one for us, Adam. Who's first off the bat for you?
Yeah, so my first one, it shouldn't be a shocker really for anyone who's listened to any of our stuff. I'm going to go Ray Davis, running back out of Kentucky. He's 5'10", 216 pounds. He is 24, so he's a little bit older than what a lot of them. There's a stat that I heard, which is the funniest thing it's so ridiculous. Braylon Allen will be the age that Ray Davis is now when he finishes his rookie deal. That's how ridiculous it is and how old Ray Davis is at the age of 24. But no, I like Ray Davis. I think there's a lot of people know about the story, the fact that he was in foster care. He really struggled. He's been sort of like, to a certain degree, passed around a few different college teams, didn't really find much of a home or any sort of like major success until he landed in Kentucky. But he's a solid guy, a solid running back. That's the one thing with him. I don't think none of these running backs are really special, but I think Ray Davis is going to give you your solid sort of like performance every week. And there are teams out there that need that, and they're going to, someone's going to pick him up because of it. I personally think he's probably going to be a 4th round pick, maybe a 5th round pick. Because of his age, I think he is going to drop off a little bit. But yeah, I think that he's got great footwork. He's really good after the catch. Brilliant in the receiving game. He did really well for Kentucky when it came to receiving. And he's got that sort of like, he's got the vision and the balance to be able to sort of make the right cuts, make the opposition miss and get through the line. And yeah, I just think that because of all of that, it shows that he is a quality option for NFL teams. So, like I say, someone will pick him up. If he was 22, I think he would be going a lot earlier. I have to say, I think that they really are knocking him down because of his age quite a lot. But that's something that we see quite often, isn't it, with NFL teams? So yeah, I think he's a really solid choice, and definitely one that I think is not going to be amazing, but I think in 5 years' time, wouldn't surprise me if he was still in the NFL, still carving out a career and doing okay for a team, or maybe he might have even moved on to another by then.
Yeah, I don't get this whole age concern thing. If a player's 24, you get 5 good years out of him. Let's say he's not going to be a first round, so you get 4 really good years out of him on his rookie deal. He's only going to be sort of getting up to that 28 mark. I don't think that's overly too old as a player. So, I think equally, if you get someone that's 21 and get 5 years out of them, that might be all you get. It depends how hard you use them. So I don't get this age concern thing. I think if they're good and you get a good couple of years out of them, why not? It's worth it if you definitely win now. Adam, you said he's going to go around the 4th round. What sort of teams do you think will be looking at him? Where do you think his skill set lies? Where do you think is a good landing spot for him? What sort of teams?
I mean, I did sort of think just a minute ago when I thought that might come up, and I haven't written anything for it, but I was sort of thinking when it comes to landing spots for someone like Ray Davis, I think it's probably a team that have already got themselves a fairly solid, strong running back already, and then he can be there just as depth and be able to do something. I mean, to me, I think a team like the LA Rams I feel like they are lacking in depth at running back. They've got themselves the first option in Kyron Williams, with Kyron, of course, being a 5th round pick. So they're not against bringing in these running backs a bit later in the draft and going for something like that. So yeah, I do think that maybe somewhere like the LA Rams would be a good fit for him. He needs to. The one thing I would say, Kentucky had a very good O-line. I think he probably needs a team with a good O-line. We saw with Kyron how well he did. Obviously, the Rams do have a fairly decent O-line. So I think that a team like that would make a lot of sense. I'm not too sure where else, if there's anywhere specifically. But yeah, the Rams to me seem to fit when it comes to running backs.
Yeah. They definitely need someone. They definitely need to strengthen that up. I think possibly.
But I don't think they need to spend too much on it. That's the point. I think that's why it kind of works a bit better.
Definitely. Well, my first guy up, again, like I said, another running back. I've gone with someone who I thought was going to declare last year. I thought he had a brilliant season last year. I thought he was going to go into the draft, but he chose to go back. He tried to beat some more records, and that's Frank Gore Jr., a name that we're probably familiar with because we all know who Frank Gore is and the success that he had in the league. I know they had a little wager with each other about success at college and success in the NFL. So I thought this guy was a decent prospect last year. So nothing's changed in my mind. I think he's still I thought he might be a better prospect this year because there was a lot of really good running backs in the draft last year. But 2022, he had 1,382 yards, 9 touchdowns. This year, he's over that 1,000 mark again, 1,131, 10 touchdowns. He gets involved quite heavily in the catch, and he has that ability. Added over 200 yards each of those seasons and 3 touchdowns. So he has that ability. I think he's not one of these guys that went to a small school and didn't play anybody. He came up against some of the bigger schools. I think they played Florida State this year. So let's have a quick look who else he played up against, because I know there were some fairly decent teams they came up against. They played Miami, they played Liberty, played Tulane, Coastal. And then if you remember rightly, last year they played in a bowl game and he had 329 yards and 2 touchdowns. The ability's there. He's come up against some tough opponents and he broke that record. He's very shifty. He's very good. He's very good at finding the holes. I rate him, and I don't think he's getting enough volume just yet. And it's looked like he's projected at maybe of a 5th or a 6th rounder. So he's going to go a lot later than the likes of Ray Davis. You're going to get him later than that. And he played in the Shrine Bowl this year, which is one of the college games. It's similar to the Senior Bowl. It gets them to showcase. And he was the MVP. He was the MVP of the Shrine Bowl this year. So yeah, I think with his skill set and his change of pace and the way he plays, I think if he goes to a team that's got a committee backfield, he's going to fit in and slot in nicely. So later on in the draft, if the likes of the Eagles, the Broncos, the Ravens, the 49ers like the run game, heavy in that, I think he'll fit in, plug and play first season, have a lot of success. I also think if the Cowboys are looking to double dip in this on running back, then they go for a big, heavier guy, and then take Frank Gore later, who has been a 3-down back for Southern Miss. So, he has that ability to be a 3-down back if you need him to be. I think the only knock on him for me would be the long speed. I think he's got good bursts and he can get through the gaps and he sees the gaps, but his long speed maybe not there. He's got some really, really good highlights as well if you take a look at the tape. And I don't know why people aren't talking about him as much. Surely he's getting some advice from his dad as well. That's got to help as well.
I was going to say, is there any sort of a reasoning behind why he's not being pushed up a little bit higher? Because, like you say, he did have a very, not last season, but the season before, he was decent, wasn't he, in college? And there was a lot of talk about him coming out the next year and how good he was going to be. I mean, was it just a step off, or is it just that there's a load of others that have come up, or, is there anything?
I suppose you could say there's only really a drop off of about 200 yards in the rushing. Had a similar amount of carries. His yards per carry dropped last year, but he had that extra 4 touchdowns on the season. So I think it was still productive. Anyone who's having, you've got to remember his O-line is nowhere near as good as some of the other guys' O-lines that we're talking about. And he's managed to carve out back-to-back years with 1,000+ yards and 9 and 10 touchdowns. You've got to have the skill. You've got to have the skill to be able to do that at the college that he's at. Like I said, it's not as if he's playing rubbish teams every single week as well. If I take a look at it, and last year when we thought there might be a drop off, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He had 5 games over 100 yards, and one of those games was 247 yards against Appalachian State, who are a team that people know. So he's getting the yards per game as well. Like I say, he's an every down back. So I don't know why it's dropped. If we take a look at his size as well, let me just bring that up because he's decent. He fits NFL size. Yeah. There's no qualms with me in that. He's 5'8". Let's have a quick look at that.
I do feel like the whole of the class has kind of been thrown under a bus a little bit. Mm-hmm. Just in general. So if you're one of these guys who they're not really getting talked about that much anyway, and then you're kind of getting, the top guys you're coming out and saying, oh, they're not anything special, then I do wonder if that's why it's almost like just by association, you all just keep on falling down. So maybe that's all it is.
Yeah, 5'8", 201 pounds. So he's not a small guy. He's definitely got the build for it. And I think it always helps if you've got a mentor. We'll talk about Marvin Harrison and his bloodline. We'll talk about Chris Jenkins and his bloodline and things like that, and how it can translate and how it's not as hard for them. So I don't know why Frank Gore's not being thrown in there as well. So for me, I'm going to put my stamp of approval on him and say he could be a great committee backfield player and have a lot of success. So we'll move on to the next position. I've got a wide receiver. I believe you've got a wide receiver as well.
I have, yeah. So I looked at the one that I did look at originally was Xavier Legette, but it does feel more and more now that he's going to be potentially a end of the first, but probably beginning of the second round wide receiver. So I sort of moved away from him and gone for someone who I think will be a little bit further down. And I'm going to go for Jalen McMillan out of Washington. Now, McMillan, I just thought, looking at his tape, I think that he was kind of the forgotten one of the three a little bit. I feel like obviously everyone's gone crazy for a Dunze. I feel like Jalen Polk is the one who, if people go, oh well, he was number two, but Macmillan kind of got forgotten a little bit. He missed quite a bit of time, didn't he? At some point, I think it was last year, he missed a bit of time, and I do wonder if that's partly why as well. From what I saw of him, he's a different kind of receiver to them two guys. I just kind of felt like he was very much like quite a smart receiver, almost like he uses his brain a little bit more. He's a bit more, he's definitely a slot guy, route runner, really good route runner. He's going to be brilliant for any team who want to do sort of like these short cross kind of moves across the field. Nothing too. He's not like long speed kind of guy. He's just sort of like in between coverages and stuff like that. You know, the sort of things that to a certain extent, kind of what sort of like a Hunter Renfro kind of guy I could imagine, or maybe like a Khalil Shakir, that sort of guy, where it's kind of a lot of it is crossing routes and it is just getting the yards after the catch. He's really good with the yards after the catch. Obviously, he's going to struggle if you put him in like a vertical offense. He's not going to be that. So Miami, don't draft him. You're wasting your time. So that's no good. And I do feel like his strength is he's maybe not quite as strong as other guys, despite the fact that he's got like a 6'1" frame. I feel like he could be a bit stronger, but that's something that maybe he could build on that and get stronger in time. But yeah, I thought that this is a guy who clearly looks very capable. He got a lot of the ball when he was out there for Washington. He was definitely targeted quite a lot by Penix and the Washington head coaching staff. He just wasn't. I don't know. I don't think he's got anything special about him, but I think he's kind of like. But then he wouldn't do, because if he did, he wouldn't be like a third day pick sort of thing. But I think he's definitely one that teams would be good for. I'm trying to think of a team that would be good for him, for like them sort of like crossing routes and stuff like that. I sort of think maybe Arizona, if they wanted to go for one later on, especially if they've got Marvin Harrison as sort of like your main guy, maybe a slot guy would be good for someone like Arizona. New England need receivers, so again, he's used to playing in rough weather in Washington, so that wouldn't be too bad in New England. But yeah, them kind of places, I think.
Yeah, definitely a forgotten guy. I think with Jalen Polk there as well, he was really good. I think the only thing that separates obviously Rome Odunze, which we know all about, is he's slightly leaner, a bit smaller, and I think that's why they're probably talking about the other two guys who are bigger, taller, and heavier as well. So I think maybe that frame size might be what brings him down slightly, but consistently was there when they needed him. Got to the championship game, was used. He wasn't a bit part. So yeah, fantastic player. Adam, what round do you think roughly he'll be going in?
I think he's probably the very, very end of round 3. So I reckon probably the very end of round 3 or the beginning of round 4. I don't see him. I know a lot of wide receivers are being mocked to go in the first and the second, but I just think there's so many that I think that Macmillan is probably going to slip a little bit, and so I reckon probably very early day 4. Round 4.
Definitely. I said that before and you mocked me. Definitely a steal. I rate him. I think he'll do well. I think, like I say, all 3 of those wide receivers out of Washington this year have got a chance to make it. So I think that'd be real good. Right, my wide receiver, I think he's of a similar grade to Macmillan. He's just a different style of player. He's taller. He's 6'2". He's 208 pounds. So taller, he's heavier, he's a different type of receiver, but I think he's going to be the same value. I think he's going to go around a similar time to what Macmillan is, and that is another guy who has a bloodline that was fantastic in the NFL, and that's Brendan Rice from USC. Had 2 years at Colorado, didn't quite work out there. Transferred over to USC and found a bit more success, especially in his last year. Got up to 791 yards and 12 touchdowns. I think that's real key, that 12 touchdown thing, because the yardage isn't quite there that you'd like. But what I really like about him is he's a big, strong receiver. I think, again, he's got the ability. I think for me, you're going to not like him, Adam. He's not going to fit for you because he does struggle with separation a little bit. But, I think when you've got the outstanding length and you're an alpha and you can get the ball, and the speed is there. He's not the quickest, but the speed is there. If you watch him at the combine catching some balls, he's catching balls down low. He's making the space in other ways, like from his football IQ, he's creating more space. I do think that once you get the ball in his hands, I think the yards after the catch, that's when he becomes really, really good. I think he's got good in-play speed. So once he's got that, can get up to his top speed. I think he's really good once you get the ball in his hands. And like I say, big guy, can get the contested catches, then off he goes with that speed. So I think he's got the ability. And again, it's another guy that I think his bloodline's going to help him, and he's going to know what it's like to go into the dressing room and be with those guys. Maybe would have expected more from him at USC with Caleb Williams, but I like what I saw on the combine for me, and seeing those extra bits that I was worried about really solidified for me that I've said for quite a while now, he's probably the diamond in the rough for me of the whole draft. I think a lot of people are going to pass on him, and he's going to be down there around round 4. But I think he's of a similar quality to some of the guys that might go in round 2 for me. So I think he's going to be a steal later on. And I think the likes of maybe the Steelers, the Panthers, the Lions, I think all of them, he'd fit in fantastically. And especially the Lions, I think that'd be a really good home for him as well. But yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting because obviously the sort of common theme that keeps coming out is who's the Puka Nakua this year. Everyone wants to find the Puka Nakua this year. And they probably won't, because there's probably only going to be one Puka Nakua sort of thing. But it does feel like there's quite a lot of potential candidates this year. There's a lot of them that are lower down. I think both the guys that we've mentioned are definitely have the ability to really progress and be something at a cheap price in this year's draft. And there really is loads more, and it just goes to show how strong this wide receiver class is.
Yeah, it's really strong. I think what we're looking at, we're probably looking at ours being prospect number around the 20s, aren't we? Well, maybe wide receiver 2021. I think.
Yeah, maybe a bit. Yeah, around that.
You've still got guys after that. I think Jacob Cowing at Arizona, he's going to go even later. He was a good talent, but I'm unsure of that. Rice, I think, like I said, I'm putting my stamp of approval on it, and I'm for sure he's going to make it and do well. And I think if you're, like you said, if you're the next Puka Nakua, if you're a 4th round pick and you manage to make it, I think you've done well.
Yeah.
We move on to our next position. Adam, who have you got next up?
So I've got a tight end this year, and I know that a lot of people have kind of come out and said that, if you wanted any team that wanted a really strong tight end, apart from Brock Bowers, any team that wanted a really good tight end, you should have done it last year, basically, is what a lot of people are saying. A lot of them came out. But there is one guy that I really like the look of, and I think he's probably going to be 4th round, maybe 3rd. Again, I feel like there's pretty similar grade to McMillan in that respect. Ben Sinnott from Kansas State. He's 6'4", 245 pounds. So he's kind of that new styled tight end that we've spoken about quite a lot, that we feel like Brock Bowers is very much that sort of like that new style. This guy, when I looked at it, everything felt like Sam Laporta. Everything about him felt like Sam Laporta. He's a really solid route runner. He's very good at that. Great for yards after the catch. He's a capable blocker. He's got really good hands. It's not his strength really blocking, but he's capable of doing it. He can play anywhere. If you look at his snap count when he was playing for Kansas State, he was literally all over the place. In the backfield, on the line, against the press, everything. He was capable of being everywhere. He had a really good combine, which I think is where he kind of. I think they were like we knew of him, we'd seen tape of him, and we'd done the tight end episode, I think, before or around the combine, and we didn't know about him. But I feel like after the combine, a lot of people suddenly knew a lot more about him. He had a 3-cone drill that was like 96th percentile, vertical 40-inch, which was really high as well. To me, the only real weakness that I think he has is if he's going up against someone very strong on the D line, he can get overpowered. He is 245. If you're getting someone coming at you that's like 300 and they're coming at speed, then that's going to be tough for him to be able to do anything about that. But that's not really his game so much. I feel like he's more of the new tight end passing type, across the middle of the field predominantly kind of guy. And I just think that he's actually got a really good chance of making it. And you've said yourself, haven't you, about how you look at these teams that are getting in championship games and Super Bowls and how they're reliant on these tight ends, and you start seeing these other young tight ends and what they're doing now, and how much more they're getting involved compared to what they used to. It used to be that you were just another blocker a lot of the time. Now it's like it's a completely different ball game for tight ends. They're just sort of like souped up wide receivers to a certain extent. And this guy is one that can be one of these guys, and is kind of coming into the NFL at exactly the right time. For the way that he plays with his size. And I think he could have a pretty decent career.
Yeah, they're essentially big, strong, athletic slot receivers, aren't they? Let's call them what they are, because that's what they are. I think Jimmy Graham was the first guy to try and petition out getting paid as a wide receiver as well, because essentially, that, like I said, that is what they are. They're not asked to block. I don't think Kelsey's asked to block that much. I don't think Laporta's asked to block that much. I think Mark Andrews, I don't think he's being overly asked to block. I think George Kittle does quite a bit in the blocking game. But, he's a different beast. I think he just loves it. But yeah, they're not asked to block as much, and they are essentially just big slot receivers. So yeah, I think we evaluated Ben Sinnott in our tight end show. We had him very highly in that. So if you do want to know more about him, we spoke very highly of him on that. So go back, take a look at the tight end prospects. I do think he's a fantastic person. Adam, you got any landing spots you think he might finish up, where he might work?
I mean, really, I feel like now this is kind of, like we say, this is becoming the new normal, isn't it? So, I mean, really, any team, what team doesn't have a great tight end kind of thing is essentially where we're going with this now. I mean, I think the Giants, if Darren Waller doesn't come back, could do with a tight end, so I think that wouldn't be an awful spot for him to land at. The Jets, if they don't take Brock Bowers, they need, it would be another weapon, wouldn't it, for Rodgers? Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few. It really is anyone who just doesn't have a tight end that's really doing very well at the moment. I mean, to a certain extent, maybe Kansas City. I mean, Kelsey's not getting any younger. They're going to have to replace him at some point, and he is that kind of player. And you wouldn't be paying a massive price for him, because I do think he is third, fourth round. So maybe somewhere like Kansas City to replace him. But yeah, I mean, that I think is what you're looking for now. I feel like every team needs to find a tight end that is sort of, going to be able to do the things that every other tight end does now in the league. And so I think he's got a very good chance.
Yeah, I think Washington Commanders might be a good spot
Yeah.
there. They've got Zach Ertz, and outside of that, they've not really got anyone. And Zach Ertz,
Logan Thomas is gone, isn't he?
Yeah,
so he would be good.
Commanders, maybe the Bengals as well if they want to wait on a guy and take someone a little bit later. I know they got Mike Gesicki, didn't they? But
the Rams is another team. Again, they've got Higbee, and that's it. I mean, do you want to? They might be interested in going down that route. I think there's actually quite a few teams that he could land at. But I just feel like, if you haven't got, essentially, if you didn't go out and get yourself a tight end last year, you probably need to get one this year. If you haven't got like the main guys sort of thing, then you probably need to this year.
Yeah, I haven't got a tight end for us, Adam, but I am on the offensive side of the ball still. I have an offensive tackle for you. I have Javon Foster from Missouri, 6'6", 313 pounds. The guy is the frame of a tackle, really, isn't he? He's got absolute excellent length. He was at the combine. He was at the Senior Bowl. He measured his length was in the higher level of that. Great hand size as well. I think he's strong. He's got plays with great strength. He's got good strike ability. He only allowed, I think, if I'm right in this, I think he allowed 1 sack all of last year playing from, and he allowed 12 rushes, I think it was, which we don't mind the quarterback rushes too much, do we? That's going to happen. But he managed to prevent his quarterback from getting sacked at tackle. He played a lot at left tackle. I think he only played 2 years, and I think he's 24 now. I think people are finding it hard to find his age, but I think he's 24. Played 2 years, had an injury in the middle. I think people were a little bit worried about that, but I thought he played very, very well last year. Big, strong guy. I think he can play right tackle. He can play left tackle. But like I say, his size is perfect. It was also was the All-American SEC team pro. So, that's nothing to shy at all. If you can get into the all team for SEC, it's supposed to be the strongest team. So that proves to you that you're good. Again, he's going up against some fantastic players in that SEC, and he's managed to only give up 1 sack, like I say, and there was progression from his 2022 year to his 2021 year to his 22-3 year. So he's definitely got the ability. I had him really highly ranked coming into it. I saw a little bit of him. I was like, this guy looks great, fantastic. I think the only knock I've really got on him is I think his footwork could do with polishing up and getting a little bit better. And he plays a little bit high to pad level as well. So in run blocking, maybe it's not going to be as strong for him. But I think if you're wanting to wait and you're not immediately wanting a tackle as your immediate sort of, this is what I need, I think you're going to get this guy late round 3, maybe round 4. So I could see maybe an Eagles maybe taking a punt on this guy. They're talking about the fact that they need to get a bit younger, but they don't need someone right now. So I think he could come in, sit behind, polish up that footwork a little bit, put him with the guys that are probably the best at it at the game at the minute, and get him up to that level, because he's, like I say, he's got the perfect frame, build, size and length for the NFL. So there's no reason why this guy can't produce the goods. We'll just try and think of another team that might want to get hold of him.
I mean, there's a few teams that need tackle, isn't there? I mean, Seattle are one that are looking at both of their lines. I think Denver might want a tackle at some point. I mean, where are you looking at him going?
So I think he's going to be late round 3, round 4. I think maybe round 4 is probably ideal for him, but I think he's got the ability to be a late round 3. So if you take a look at the back end of that round.
So Seattle have got 2nd pick in round 4. So something like that might make sense. Washington, They're they're right at the back of round 3. Jacksonville have actually got 2 picks in the 4th and a pick in the 3rd. So I mean, Jacksonville could be a team that maybe want to do something. I know they had a few O-line issues, so they could be another team.
I also think
I think it's one of them positions, isn't it? Really, where like everyone just wants more guys.
yeah, I mean, if he can fall to like a San Francisco at pick 94,
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect time for him. I think he'd suit them quite well. So yeah, I'm shocked. Again, I'm shocked that he's not as higher up on boards. I think maybe people think he's a little bit too old. Maybe people didn't see enough of him. I don't know. Maybe the injury worry is bringing him down the boards. But you know, he's was great at the Senior Bowl. Thought he showcased himself well. Made the SEC team. I think it's all trending in the right direction for him. So I think, like I say, with his attributes and his size and his length, any NFL team should be snapping him up and working him and polishing that footwork up, because that's all you need for him to be real good. So Adam, who have you got next up?
Yeah, so with my 4th guy, I'm going to move over to the defense now, because I'm going to go Jonah Ellis, edge rusher out of Utah. Now there has been a little bit of hype around him, but he's a weird one. Some people have got him very high, and some people have got him quite low, and so it feels very difficult to kind of work out exactly where we think he's going to go. I've got him down as a 2nd, 3rd round sort of grade, so he's a little bit higher than the other guys that I've picked. But I feel like this guy really does have the potential to be something quite special. There's been a lot of sort of people have kind of been saying that once you get past the top 3 edge rushers, then the class kind of falls off quite a lot, which I think is a little bit harsh, really, because I do feel like that some of them are decent. It's just that they might not be of the standard that we've seen over the last few years. I feel a little bit like not quite as bad as the running backs, but a bit like the running backs. So Jonah Ellis, the reason that I love him, and as you know, my number 1 guy at the edge class is Latu. I just think that he's the best one of the lot. I just love the technique and the finesse of him. This is what Jonah Ellis is. It's the same kind of guy. It's not about the power. It's about the technique, the finesse, the way that he maneuvers himself past people and to be able to get through the gaps. Ellis, I think, has got brilliant hands. He's accurate, uses them really well. When I say about the moves that Latu has, Ellis is number 2 when it comes to the amount of different moves and he uses in order to be able to get through. And like I said, he has that power, he has that finesse, he gets the inside leverage really, really well, and that's something that he does and has done all the time he's been in there. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I think he's probably dropped a little bit lower. I think he's a little bit smaller than the rest of the guys, just in general. I'm talking like the real top guys. I think he's a little bit smaller, not a lot, but he is 6'2", 246. And you look at the others, and they're kind of like, a few of them are 6'3", 6'4". Some of them are like 260, and so I think it's just there's that to it. Like I say, power, but power isn't really his game so much. And then obviously he has missed he missed some games. So he had a bad shoulder injury. He tried to play through it. I saw some of the tape where he was kind of like, you could tell that he was playing injured because he just wasn't using his left hand. And it's like, so he's just going around trying to use one arm. It's like, it's just ridiculous. But I have to say, I think he isn't, before anyone goes mental, but I think he's watched a lot of TJ Watt. I really do, because I feel like that's what he's modelled himself on a little bit, and he isn't, and I don't think he ever will be, because there's not many that can. But he definitely has the potential to be a very good player in the NFL. I think he'll do very well. I think you've got the top 3 edge rushers, and then for me, he's next. But I feel like there's a lot of people out there that would disagree with that and think that they could come out and say he's like 7th or 8th in the class. You know, that wouldn't surprise me if they said that. But yeah, I think he's just very good. He's not even 21 yet as well, so he's got loads of time to develop and get better. I just think he's a potentially a very, very good player. And when it comes to teams that need edge rushers, like I said, I think we're looking probably towards the back of the second myself.
Back of the second. Ooh.
Yeah, I think back of the second, early third, I think is probably where you're looking for him. It depends where other people go. I mean, if Green Bay want to, I wouldn't complain if he turned up on the Packers. If they wanted to go for an edge rusher just for depth, I think teams like Philadelphia and Cleveland, they bring in so many guys. They like to rotate all the time, so I feel like they would be decent choices for him. Top of the third, Washington would be an obvious choice, wouldn't they? They lost a lot of edge rushers in the season, so Washington would make a lot of sense. They've got pick 78, so that wouldn't be too bad for him. Yeah, I think that they're kind of the teams that I feel that he could do pretty well at.
Panthers could probably
Panthers could do with anyone at the moment, didn't they?
Yeah, so I remember as soon as the college season finished and we started talking about people, I told you some of the players I liked, and you said to me, like, am I missing something with Jonah Ellis? You were like, what? I was like, you were like, give me your opinion on him because I think he's fantastic. I was like, let me go and take a look back at the tape because I wasn't as high as you were on him, and he is phenomenal. And I did miss parts because I went back and I watched and I thought I have missed some here. And I love it that you're giving me players and I'm going, yeah, you're right, because it's usually the other way around. So I absolutely love it. I think he's a great talent. Like I said, I think you're onto a winner with that one. I think that's a good stamp of approval. That is. I think he will do well wherever he lands. So I do like that one.
But I do think he'll drop.
Yeah, there's a few names, isn't there, that kind of have started going up the boards, and he's not really been in that sort of conversation. So just trying to work out a couple of the names that I have been hearing. So I think Nealon's been one of the guys that's lots of people at Marshawn Lehman from Western Michigan. I think he's started to rise up boards quite a bit. Who was the other one? There was someone else as well. I think Adissa Isaac from Penn State. I think a lot of people have been talking about him, but yeah, Jonah Ellis has sort of slipped under the radar. So I've slipped under the radar for someone absolutely, win, I think. Well, Adam, I'm keeping it on the D line, but I'm going more interior. I'm going for an interior defensive lineman, and I'm going for a former 5-star recruit that no one's talking about. A former 5-star recruit that went to a big college as well, and that's Mason Smith from LSU. The guy is an absolute beast. We'll pull up his sizes. He is 6'5". He's 306 pounds. He also was at the combine and he ran 5 seconds in the 40-yard. He had a 31 vertical. He did his split in 175. For a guy this size, I think that's that's impressive. That's some really, really good ability. I think with that athleticism, size, I think you can't go wrong. 5-star recruit. I think why people aren't talking about him so much is in 2021 there was lots of hype about him. People thought he was going to be fantastic. He had a few games and then he had an injury and he missed the whole of 2022. But he came back in 2023, and as the season progressed, he got better and better. And like I say, I think he came back too early, but as the season went on, you saw glimpses of that 5-star recruit, that real solid player, that guy that can get the pressure on. And you see that in the tackles, the sacks, started to get back. And then when you see him at the combine and you see him running and you see him healthy, I think you think, yeah, if I'm an NFL team, he's a former 5-star recruit. I think you've got to take a punt on him. I think he can live up. I think he's got a very high ceiling. I think he can live up to the expectation of what he was in college. I also think, again, he's going to be a round 3 guy, I think. So similar sort of area to what we've been talking about with some of the guys. I think he also made what they call, I know they rank people on a freaks list from the college. He made it onto that list. So, I think he can be utilized really, really good. I think he's going to be effective at sort of stopping the run at any time as well. So you've got that pressure on the quarterback, stopping the run, anyone who needs to do that. I think he'd be a quality guy. I'm thinking maybe someone that might be aging at that position, someone that might want a younger guy to come in. I'm thinking round 3, maybe the Browns, the Bengals, maybe the Saints, LSU.
Yeah.
Saints might want him. I think he's going to be an absolute steal at them, can come in, can learn, can play. Like I say, get in with a couple of good guys at good organizations that are good on defense, and I think he'll be fine there. So, Mason Smith, LSU. I think he's absolutely quality, and I can't see it not working for him.
Yeah, New Orleans sound like a good choice. Obviously, they struggle with free agency given the situation that they're in. So yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense. I think Denver maybe might want to sort of go for, it's teams that don't have a lot of draft capital, isn't it? To a certain extent, if they can go and get themselves these guys in the 3rd round, make a lot of sense for that sort of position.
Yeah, I think sort of around that sort of anywhere between, Denver in there, anywhere between 76 is Denver, down to that sort of 80 is the Bengals, and 85 is the Browns. So I think one of those 3 in that mark, I think that's his range, and I think he could fit in really, really nice there. Like I said, I don't know how you can pass up on him. Adam, go and take a look. I don't know why people are missing out on this guy. Again, a guy that was quite high on going into this process, and we just haven't really heard anything from him. So
again, though, it's a position, isn't it? It's like the defense. It does feel like it's kind of being overlooked a little bit. It feels like, with the edge, you got your top 3, and with the sort of defensive line, you got your couple of guys, your 1st round guys. But after that, people just aren't really talking about anyone else. It feels like there's not much depth there at the moment, and it's almost like the whole class has just been kind of thrown under the bus a bit.
Yeah, I just think, like I say, the ceiling on this guy, even if he doesn't work, which I think he will, at the round you're getting him,
yeah,
it's a no-brainer. He could turn out to be a Pro Bowler in sort of like 3 years' time. That's how high I could see people saying, he's a Pro Bowler in sort of 2-3 years' time, and I think if you're getting that round, it's just insane.
Yeah, I mean, there was the guy, wasn't there, from the Rams? Is it someone Turner?
Kobe Turner.
Yeah, and he was like, 3rd round, 4th round, something like that, and he did really well, and I think it's become, you can do it quite a lot. So yeah.
Adam, last player up. Who have you got?
Yeah, last player up. Started with Kentucky. Thought I'd finish with Kentucky as well. Why not? So my last guy, I've gone for a corner. Like I say, out of Kentucky, Andrew Phillips. He's 5'10", 191 pounds. So he's not your sort of Sauce Gardner type. He's not that big, but he's still a decent size for it. He's a very physical guy. Really likes to get involved. Great foot speed, great change of direction. That's definitely something that this guy has, and you can tell that from the tape. Really fluid hips, anticipation is brilliant, sticks to his man like anything. Really, really good. So he has lots and lots of positives about him. There are unfortunately a few negatives about this guy, which is why he's dropping. The corner class is actually pretty decent this year, but he's dropped. I personally think he's probably going to be late 2nd, early 3rd, probably more likely to be 3rd than 2nd myself. His long speed is all right, but it's not incredible. That's something that he's okay with, but he's not brilliant. His run defense is not good, is probably the nicest way I can put it. He really struggles with that. And also his tackling isn't brilliant either. I mean, you just kind of feel like surely by now they should be teaching these kids how to tackle out of college, but for some reason his tackling just isn't brilliant. And obviously, like, run defense and tackling, you kind of need to be decent at in order to be a good prospect in the NFL. He is very young. I do feel like he has the potential to sort of like get a little bit better and be able to hone them skills with some, good NFL coaching and stuff like that. So I do feel like he has the potential. I just feel like there's a reason that we're talking about these guys as sort of like third round onwards kind of thing. And when you think of how good the corner class is, that's why he has to have these negatives in order to be like included in this. But yeah, I think he could be decent. And everyone needs a corner, don't they? Really? I mean, who doesn't need a corner now? I don't feel like there's any really sort of like corner needy teams that are not going to go corner in the first round kind of thing. So once you've done that, you're not a corner needy team anymore. So I just think that there isn't anyone specifically, but I do feel like he's definitely a second day player.
Yeah, I think the only knock I'd really have on him is he might get overpowered by some of the bigger receivers.
Yeah,
that's probably it. So I think you're onto another winner with that. Again, a guy that no one's really talking about too much. There's a lot of talk about the cornerbacks, and especially the one I've got coming up next, because I thought it was going to be a great one to talk about, but he seems to be flying up the boards. But no, I think your guy should be good, and he can fit in somewhere. Is there any particular team you think he fits well for?
I mean, like I say, not specifically. I really do feel like he could go pretty much anywhere and he'd be able to do a job. I mean, it's really about if there's anyone who really needs depth at corner. I mean, we were saying, weren't we, about Pittsburgh and O-line in the first round? So that's a team that maybe could do with some depth at corner. They always need cornerbacks. They always struggle over the top. So he might be someone. And because of his physicality and the way that he sticks to his guy, I do think that would kind of be the way that they would like to play in Pittsburgh. So I suppose if I was going anywhere, you could go there. They are a bit later in the third round, but he might drop to that. And if not, then they are obviously late in the second, so he could go early. So yeah, I do feel like somewhere like Pittsburgh might make a lot of sense. The Packers have got plenty of picks in that bit, so that's another team that we kind of feel like corner is a not a massive area of need, but it is one that I think for depth they would want to go for. Indianapolis, we've said, haven't we, loads of times, that they got beaten over the top, gave up too many points. So corner, again, another team a little bit earlier in the third with them. So yeah, I think there's a few teams that he could go to and make a difference for him.
Yeah, I've got another cornerback as well, Adam. You thought your guy was on the smaller side. My guy is 5'9" and 182 pounds, and I can see him. I had him as a third rounder, but I think he's definitely going in the second round now. And that is Mike Sainristil from Michigan. The guy started his career off at Michigan as a wide receiver. He played 2 years, 2.5, 3 years at wide receiver before they went, do you know what, let's put you in at cornerback, see how you get on. And if you think about the 2022 and the 2023 Michigan Wolverines and how good that defense was, especially in 2023, I could argue and say one of the best defenses in college last year, and he was their best player on defense. So I think if you're that, I'm not worried about whether you're 5'9" and under 200 pounds. I think especially when you've come from a wide receiver background and you know how to run the routes, what the wide receivers are going to do. I think it's really helped him. I think he can play corner. I think he can play safety as well in that sort of nickel position. So I think he's going to fit a lot of teams, and his scheme's going to be great. And when you look at what he achieved in 2022 and 2023, there's progression as well. And then that last season, total of 44 tackles, 26 solo, 18 assists. He had 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 6 interceptions. So I am not worried about him at all. I think he's absolutely fantastic. You can't not take that away from him. That, like I said, the best defender on the best team. That's got to mean something going into this draft. He's got the speed. He'll be able to play. I think he'll be able to play against the bigger guys as well. I've got no worries about that. Real scrappy guy. Plays 100. Like, what I really like about him, plays 110% in every single snap. There's the motor on this guy is insane. He gets zone coverage. He gets it all. Footwork's absolutely fantastic. I don't see many downsizes other than someone being worried about his actual size and strength, maybe. Because other than that, I think he's a solid guy, and I think he's risen his stock up to round 2 now. So instead of me talking about him being a round 3 guy, I might have to say round 2. So if you're one of those teams that doesn't want to gamble high on one of those guys and just leave it, or maybe just go round 3, I don't know. I think if you're the Raiders, the Giants, the Colts, I think you're really interested in him. Adam, is there someone that you think he might fit well at in the positions I'm saying?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, so I was going to kind of ask you, because there has been a bit of, obviously he has flown up boards, and there has been some people that have actually mocked him to go in the first round. And right at the very back, I know the 49ers have been a team that have been thought of for the first round for him. There's been talk about Kansas City might go for him in the first round, because obviously who was it that went to the Titans? Forgotten his name. Snead's gone, and so they might want to bring in another corner. That was one. Obviously, there's always links to the Ravens because of Harbaugh and all that. And so again, there's been a few teams in the back of the first. So there has been talk about it. Yeah, I mean, you could argue the Chargers. Obviously, they might want, he might just Harbaugh might want his guy back in LA, so that would make sense. I do think the Colts make an awful lot of sense at corner, and so that would definitely be one, especially if they didn't go for a corner in the first round. You sort of feel like that would make a lot of sense. But yeah, I mean, like you say, he can play safety as well, and so that kind of, to a certain extent,
2-for-1.
The Packers have got a pick in there as well in that early second, so they could go there as well and do something like that. Yeah, I think there's a lot, and as you say, I mean, obviously a lot of people might come out and go, it wasn't just him, it was the whole defense in Michigan that obviously did what they did. But the fact is that he was a major part of that, and he needs to be given credit for that. And so I think, yes, he's probably got a very good career coming up. I would have thought. I'd be very surprised if he fell off. So yeah, there's plenty of teams that would be lucky to have a corner like that, but not only that, probably not have to pay a first round pick for him.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, if he gets up into the first, that would be one hell of a rise from a 3rd round prospect to a 1st round prospect. Now, I had him honourable mention to a guy. I had him marked around the Max Melton mark, who we were going to talk about today because we both really like him as well. But he seems to have slowly shot up boards as well. But yeah, I had them graded very similar, and yeah, it just proves that these guys can make a difference and raise their stock in the off season. So it's been fantastic.
Yeah, there's serious depth this year. In all, pretty just not.
Well, that's all we've got time for. We've just about hit that hour mark, but yeah, really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to seeing where these guys land. Hopefully, if you've been interested in what we're talking about and they land at your team, great. If they have success, come back, listen again, and we'll be giving you next year's players and tips as well. Adam, we've got our mock draft coming out, our official franchise tag mock draft coming out Tuesday. Then we are on to, I think we're going to put out some the best prospects available on the Friday after round 1 has happened. So stay tuned for that. But till then, guys, keep it with the franchise tag, and we will see you very soon.